Earth didn't hear the ultimatum, it felt it. It arrived on a Sunday when the news was slow, the skies were clear, and the world's major powers were already drunk on champagne and press releases from the Solstice Peace Summit in Geneva. Then, at exactly 1200 UTC, the sun dimmed. Across every screen, tower, visor, and orbital lens, a black glyph spiraled into view, ancient, pulsing, alive, no hack, no trace, just authority made visible. Then came the voice, alien, genderless, and so deep it made stomachs drop in every hemisphere. Earthian Council, you have violated the Veiled Sector Accord. You have harvested mineral life from sovereign systems. You have entered territory that does not belong to you. The Threxian Empire considers this theft. The glyph pulsed again. Now it showed a map, dots, systems, sectors, lines crossed, laws broken, and then, you have 7 solar days to atone or to be erased. No one moved. Then came the final line, send your chosen. Let the union be sealed. Let the blood pact be witnessed. Let one become royal, or let all perish. The signal cut. The world exhaled and realized it had been holding its breath. 2 hours later, in the orbital diplomatic module above Europa, Ambassador Elias Rook read the transcript while halfway through a protein bar and wearing socks that did not match. He read the final line again, slower this time. Let one become royal. He glanced at the footnote translated by linguists. Binding of house through genetic union, commonly enforced via marriage. Elias chewed, swallowed, then spoke to the room full of silent, staring Earth officials. So, let me get this straight. They want to marry us? The room didn't laugh, not because it wasn't funny, but because they wished it was a joke. Admiral Goras cleared her throat. They're invoking an ancient interstellar clause called the Union Accord, reserved for high-offense diplomacy. It requires a representative from the offending planet to bind with a member of their royal family, ritual ceremony, blood pact, genetic and cultural merger. President Yuan of the Earth United Bloc sat back slowly, the corners of her lips tightening. In exchange for mercy. In exchange for not becoming ash, Goras clarified. Elias tossed the wrapper into the bin behind him and stood up. Well, that's creative. Who do we have that fits their list of criteria? What criteria? Asked a security attaché. Admiral Goras pulled up a glowing dossier. Fluency in galactic diplomatic protocols. Immune to at least 7 types of known Threxian pathogens. Psychologically stable under pressure. Single. No children. No binding vows. Willing to engage in royal-level ritual bonding. Everyone in the room looked at Elias. He blinked. Oh no. Yuan leaned forward. Ambassador Rook, you're the only living Terran who's ever completed a negotiation with a Pluvian hive queen and walked out unaccompanied and unabsorbed. You've stared down planetary governors and pirate tribunals and convinced both to sit at the same table. You're fluent in 3 extinct trade languages. That was years ago. You're still the best option. Elias folded his arms. I didn't sign up to be wed to some alien princess just to buy Earth, another news cycle. It's not a request, Yuan said flatly. The vote is already sealed. Admiral Goras slid a slim device across the table, a genetic sync crystal, already imprinted. We've prepped a ceremonial envoy shuttle. You leave at dawn. The Oath Piercer didn't orbit so much as loom, a black barbed dagger drifting silently in the shadow of Jupiter, as if it had impaled the very fabric of space. The Terran envoy shuttle docked without challenge, no radio chatter, no escort. Elias stepped out into a corridor of cold metal and warm light. His shoes clacked against obsidian tiles that glowed faintly with runes he didn't recognize. A scent hung in the air, sharp, exotic, vaguely floral, something between spiced honey and clean steel. 2 guards stood waiting, tall, armored in scales that shimmered like volcanic glass, Their eyes, visible through their helms, glowed with a faint amber hue. One of them spoke in flawless Terran standard. "You are Rook of Earth?" "I am," Elias replied. His voice didn't shake, but it wasn't proud either. "This way." They marched him through a corridor of whispering walls. Yes, whispering. Threxian memory stone recorded sound, and replayed it in gentle echoes. Battle cries, wedding chants, fragments of older ceremonies. It felt like walking through someone else's dream. They stopped before a great curved chamber. The doors split open with a hiss. And there she was. Princess Kalara Virex stood at the center of the room like she'd always owned it. And she was unexpected. Not alien in the monstrous sense, alien in the too human way, familiar curves, familiar posture, but refined beyond reason. She didn't walk, she glided. Her robe clung to her figure like it knew secrets about her body she hadn't shared with anyone else. Copper-toned skin, eyes the color of melting gold, full lips drawn in a resting expression that felt one breath away from either a smile or a command. Her beauty wasn't announced. It unfolded, quiet, sensual, like a fire you didn't notice until it was already licking at your chest. She looked him over once, not shy, not impressed. "You are Rook. You're the princess, I take it?" She moved toward him slowly, confident in a way that wasn't showy, just earned. She stopped just close enough for him to catch her scent, cinnamon, and something deeper, like ozone before lightning strikes. "You're smaller than expected," she said, voice low, tinged with an accent that gave every syllable weight. "You're taller than the briefing suggested," Elias replied. She tilted her head, barely. The faintest amusement flickered at the corner of her mouth. "A sense of humor," she said. "Let's see if it survives the binding." She turned without a word and gestured toward a dark stone pedestal behind her. A ritual altar. Floating above it, a blade, and next to it, an oath disc, waiting for blood. The blade hovered in silence, suspended above the altar as though even gravity dared not touch it without permission. It wasn't ornate. No gold, no jewels, just obsidian, sleek, precise, and slightly curved. A weapon that meant business. And right now, business was blood. Kalara didn't reach for it immediately. She stood on the far side of the altar, studying Elias like a puzzle with sharp corners. He wasn't wearing armor, no weapon, no translator implants, just a sleek, dark diplomatic suit that fit like it had been made that morning, which it had. The collar itched. The sleeves itched more. But what truly irritated him was the feeling that he was a guest at his own execution, and everyone else had memorized the ceremony but him. Kalara broke the silence. "Do you understand what's about to happen?" "Roughly," Elias said. "We both cut ourselves, smear the plate, and you don't declare interstellar war on my planet. That about right?" She didn't smile, but her lips pressed together in a way that made him wonder if she ever had. "The binding is not symbolic," she said. "It is sacred. It is specific. Our blood, merged on this altar, seals the pact. It archives the alliance in the living records of our house. You are not just avoiding war, Ambassador. You are becoming part of my lineage." "That's a bit fast," Elias muttered. "I am not asking for your comfort," Kalara said coolly. "I am offering you survival." The silence between them stretched, tightened. Threxian silence wasn't like Earth's. It watched you, waited to see what you'd reveal when no one else was speaking. Then she stepped forward, without flourish, and reached for the blade. She didn't hesitate, didn't prep or perform. She just turned the blade in her fingers and drew a clean, practiced cut across her thumb. No wince, just a small glimmer of deep red, more vibrant than human blood, like garnet ink, and let it drip onto the center of the disc. It hissed faintly. The metal shimmered gold, then green. She extended the blade across the altar, holding it out for him without a word. Elias stared at it, at her. "You do this often?" he asked, taking the blade slowly. "Only once," she said. "The last time I tried to marry someone, it ended with a throat being slit during the third vow. Hopefully we get further than that." Elias paused, reassuring. He adjusted the blade in his grip, tried to remember everything the briefing told him about Threxian cutting customs: clean cut, not too shallow, not too deep, and don't flinch. Flinching, apparently, was considered a weakness of blood. He sliced his palm. It hurt more than he expected, a hot sting, a line of pain that felt more intimate than violent. He pressed his hand to the disc. The blood merged. Light flared beneath the metal. A voice, disembodied ancient, neither male nor female, spoke from the altar. Union recorded, pact sanctified, witnessed by blood, archived by stone, bound until fracture of flesh or vow. Kalara let out a slow breath. Not relief, resolution, like something inevitable had just locked into place. She stepped around the altar, closer. The warmth of her body approached before her hands did. She lifted his hand, still dripping, toward her face. For a second he thought she might kiss it, but instead she pressed her thumb to his wound. Not hard, not soft, just firm. "It is done," she said. "I'm still bleeding," Elias replied. "You will for some time." Then she let go. A pair of ceremonial attendants entered the chamber wearing robes of molten silk that flickered with embedded lights. They moved without sound and began preparing incense burners and pouring obsidian flasks into shallow cups. "What's this?" Elias asked. "The first feast," Kalara said. "Celebration of the union, witnessed by house. You will dine beside me as mate before the court. We will drink, be questioned, and return to my quarters for consummation." Elias nearly choked. "Sorry, did you say—" Kalara's eyes flicked toward him, still cool, still unreadable. "We are not children, Elias Rook. This is not play. The pact is not a performance, it is law, and law must be completed. I don't think I'm emotionally ready for that level of intergalactic bonding." Kalara stepped closer. Her presence, subtle yet intense, seemed to envelop the space between them. Not hostile, not hungry, but intimate, like someone whispering a dare in a language you only half understood. Her voice dropped just slightly. "You are Terran. You think of marriage as contract, romance, devotion. That is not what this is." "Then what is it?" "It is the moment before war ends, the space between weapons, and you are the blade I must not break." A chime echoed from the hall. Kalara turned without another word. "Clean yourself," she said. "You're not presentable for a feast, let alone a wedding night." And just like that, she vanished through the archway, leaving behind the scent of danger and spice and a diplomat who suddenly realized he had no idea what he'd agreed to. The dining hall of the Oathpiercer was a cathedral of shadows and fire. Massive ribs of black stone arched overhead, lit from below by slow-burning pyres that hissed faint blue smoke. Hanging orbs floated in lazy circles, glowing with faint bioluminescent script, ancient vows and battle hymns written in the old tongue. The walls pulsed as if breathing. Elias sat beside Kalara at a crescent-shaped table of obsidian and bone. Before him, a spread of alien delicacies steamed gently, spiced meats, curling red fruits that seemed to squirm slightly before going still, and translucent petals served in crystalline dishes that hummed when touched. He'd lost his appetite the moment he noticed the chalice. It was filled with dark red liquid, too dark to be wine. "Bloodroot nectar," Kalara said beside him. Her voice came soft, nearly intimate, breaking through the ambient chants of the Threxian choir at the far end of the chamber. "Distilled from the vines that feed on battlefield graves, said to strengthen vows, also very poisonous if you're uninvited." "Comforting," Elias muttered. She leaned back slightly, sipping from her own cup watching the room more than him. But her presence hovered close, a subtle current against his skin, not touch, not quite, just heat and scent and pressure. He'd changed into the formal garb they gave him, dark blue with silver threads, high collar, open chest. It wasn't armor, but it felt like a uniform designed for sacrifice. Kailara's dress was something else entirely, deep crimson, layered with flowing sheer panels that caught the firelight in unpredictable ways. Her arms were bare, except for metallic bands that pulsed softly with every heartbeat. He found himself glancing at her too often, and every time she caught him, she didn't scowl, she didn't smile. She just held his gaze a second longer than was polite. It was worse than flirting. It was curiosity. Across the table sat the high tribunal of flame, 12 Threxian elders, each marked by ceremonial scars, blindfolded with living silk that reacted to changes in tone and temperature. They didn't speak directly to Elias, but they whispered to Kailara, and she nodded occasionally in response. Elias leaned toward her. "Are they judging me?" "They're judging your posture, your scent, your breath patterns, your restraint around the bloodroot, and whether your aura is symmetrical." He paused. "That last one's not real." She turned to him, dead serious. "If it wasn't real, you'd be dead." He sat up straighter. From the far end of the hall, a gong sounded, 3 deep notes. Kailara stiffened, slightly. "Who is it?" Elias asked. She didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around her cup. Then came the figure, tall, armored, broad-shouldered, with a crown of jagged bone and steel. The hall fell to silence as he entered. No announcement needed. Emperor Virex Kal, her father. He didn't look at Elias. He didn't need to. He took a place across from the pair, his eyes glowing faintly in the firelight, and said in a voice smooth as poured iron, "Does it breathe?" Elias blinked. "Excuse me?" Kailara responded before Elias could. "He speaks, father, and bites with better teeth than the last suitor." A few in the tribunal chuckled. The emperor did not. "I see. Well then, let the test proceed." Elias turned to Kailara. "Test?" She didn't look at him. "You'll be asked questions. Answer truthfully, diplomatically, and with your blood still inside your body." "Ah, a low bar." The interrogation began subtly. An elder spoke in the old tongue. Kailara translated. "He asks what you seek in a bond." "Peace?" "Too obvious. Rephrase." Elias adjusted in his seat. "Understanding." A nod from the elder. Another question. "He wants to know what you would sacrifice to protect my honor." "That depends," Elias said slowly. "Are we talking metaphorical honor, or the kind that starts wars if someone looks at you wrong?" Kailara almost smiled. "He says both. Then I'd sacrifice my pride, but not my people." A murmur ran through the elders, some approving, some not. And then came the last question. Kailara hesitated. "He wants to know if you intend to love me." Silence. The question hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't rise. Elias met her eyes. "Not the tribunals, Heron." "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'll honor the vow, and I'll earn your respect, and maybe love comes after that." Kailara said nothing, but for the first time her gaze dropped, just slightly. The elder nodded. The emperor did not. The feast continued. The tension softened slightly. Kailara poured Elias a second cup of bloodroot. He took it without protest. The choir sang a hymn about stars and bones and promises broken in fire. She leaned closer to him as the third course arrived and whispered, "You survived. That makes you rare." He turned to her. "Rare enough to keep alive after tonight?" "Possibly." She was closer now. The glow of the table reflected in her eyes. The scent of her, sweet, sharp, unplaceable, coiled through his head like heat from a forge. And then a scream cut the room in half. One of the elders collapsed. Another jumped from their seat, drawing a blade from their sleeve. The table erupted in chaos. Guards moved. The choir stopped. A server dropped a tray with a crash. And Kalara was already moving. She shoved Elias behind her, pulling a curved dagger from her dress with terrifying speed. Her other hand glowed faintly. Energy field. "Stay down," she hissed. A figure leapt from the shadows of the upper level, a masked assassin in black armor, descending like a spear. Kalara met them midair. It was not a dance. It was not a duel. It was surgical violence. She moved like lightning had learned choreography. 2 strikes, 1 twist, and the assassin's blade was lodged in the stone floor, his own throat glistening in the firelight. He collapsed. Guards swarmed. The Emperor barked orders. Elias stood slowly, shaken, impressed, very nearly aroused. "You all right?" he asked, brushing blood from his sleeve. Kalara didn't answer. She was looking at the corpse, not in shock, in recognition. She stepped forward, reached down and pulled the mask off. Her face went still. "A loyalist," she whispered, "from my father's shadow wing." "You're saying he knew?" Kalara didn't respond. Elias stepped beside her. "He sent them to kill me." "No," she said softly. "He sent them to test me." Later that night, after the mess was cleaned, after the guests were escorted out, after the Emperor vanished into his tower with 1,000 unspoken words, Kalara and Elias stood alone in her private chambers. It was darker here, quieter. A single flame burned in a bowl near the wall. Elias sat on the edge of a raised stone platform that passed for a bed. His tunic was undone at the throat. He looked at her, standing near the door, still in her ceremonial dress, arms folded. "I'm alive," he said. "Points for me." "You handled it well," she replied. He gave her a lopsided smile. "You saved my life." Kalara stepped closer, slowly. "Do you think this bond is doomed?" she asked. "I think it's fragile," Elias said, "but not broken, not yet." She took another step, stopped in front of him. "You looked at me tonight," she said quietly, "as if I were more than your obligation." "You looked at me," he said, "like you weren't sure whether to kiss me or stab me." Her lips curved slightly. "I'm still deciding." He stood, slowly. They were close now, not touching, not yet. Just heat, breath, tension. Kalara raised her hand, touched the cut on his palm, still faintly red. Then she turned his hand over, pressed it gently to her collarbone. Her skin was warm. "This," she said, "is how it begins." "Then let's begin," Elias whispered. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But they didn't need to. Some things ignite without flame. He woke before the second sun rose. Not because of an alarm, there were none in Kalara's chambers, but because of the silence. That eerie kind of silence where everything should be calm, but the air hums like it's holding back a scream. Elias sat up. The bed was warm, empty. He was alone. The firebowl in the corner still glowed dim and blue now. The walls, etched with fluid lines of living script, pulsed faintly in response to his breath. It was always unsettling how the oath-piercer seemed to listen. He stood, shrugged on a deep crimson robe left for him at the foot of the bed, and stepped barefoot into the corridor beyond. 2 guards fell into step behind him, saying nothing. Something was coming. He could feel it, like walking toward a courthouse where your innocence doesn't matter. And sure enough, Kalara was waiting at the end of the hall, armor strapped over her hips and shoulders, hair tied up in a coiled braid like a black flame. She looked stunning and severe. "We don't get breakfast first?" Elias asked, voice dry. "You'll want an empty stomach," she replied. "Well, that's horrifying." They marched into the Hall of Judgment. It looked nothing like the feast hall. This space was circular, clean, unadorned. White stone etched with precise black rings, each labeled in Threxian glyphs. At the center, a pit, not a metaphorical one, a literal, sunken combat pit, 10 meters wide, filled with sand that smelled faintly of scorched copper. Chains hung from the ceiling above it like waiting limbs. Above the ring, balconies filled with spectators, silent, watching. Elias recognized tribunal members, a few council generals, and Kalara's father, seated in the highest arch, leaning forward like a god about to push his chosen into the abyss. "Trial of bonds," Kalara said. Her tone was unreadable. "Tell me this isn't what I think it is." "You're bonded to House Virex," she said, "but that bond must be tested, publicly. The court demands proof of worth." "And that proof involves me fighting something, doesn't it?" "Not something," she said. "Someone." She turned toward the center. A figure stepped into the ring. He was enormous, 7 feet tall, bare-chested beneath black battle wraps. His skin gleamed like polished obsidian. His eyes were pitch, no white, no iris, just abyss. He carried a spear longer than Elias was tall. "Your opponent is Tall Merrick," Kalara said. "He is undefeated in ceremonial trial combat." "Oh, good." "He was also the suitor I rejected before your arrival." Elias turned slowly toward her. "This is a setup. It's tradition." "He looks like tradition eats protein bricks for breakfast." Kalara met his eyes, and there, beneath the frost, was a flicker of something else. Worry, or something deeper? "I cannot interfere, but I can watch. And the outcome," she hesitated, "matters more than you know." Before Elias could respond, the announcer called his name. He descended the steps into the ring, and the doors closed behind him with a sound like a verdict. Tall Merrick did not charge. He waited. Elias circled, no weapon in hand, no armor, just strategy and wit. The court above murmured. Their expectation was clear. This would be quick. Merrick's voice was like stone rolling downhill. "You do not deserve her." Elias didn't look away. "And yet here we are, me in the ring, you in a skirt." That got a ripple of laughter from the crowd. Even the Emperor's lips twitched. Merrick attacked. The first sweep of the spear came too fast to dodge. Elias rolled, sand biting into his arms, and came up with a fistful of it. As Merrick turned, Elias flung the sand into his eyes, momentary distraction, and grabbed the fallen chain from the ceiling. One twist, one lunge. He wrapped the chain around Merrick's forearm and pulled. It didn't last. Merrick yanked hard, sending Elias sprawling across the ring. Pain lit up his back. But he stood. Merrick charged again. This time, Elias sidestepped, barely, drove his elbow into the brute's side, then ducked under the swing that would have taken his jaw off. His lungs burned, his ribs ached. But the crowd was watching differently now, not with pity, with respect. On the balcony, Kalara gripped the rail. She didn't cheer. That was beneath her role. But her knuckles were white. Elias wasn't just surviving. He was learning, dodging, reading Merrick's movements, using timing and terrain, not brute force, cleverness. Something no Threxian challenger had done before. He was not a warrior, but he was becoming a threat. And that stirred something inside her she didn't expect. It ended when Elias finally found his moment. Merrick lunged. Elias ducked, twisted the chain around the larger man's neck, and jumped onto his back, using gravity and leverage. The sand flew. The crowd shouted. Merrick staggered and collapsed to his knees. Elias released him before he passed out. "I yield," he said, panting. "Is that how it works?" The hall fell silent, then erupted. The Emperor stood slowly, said nothing, but nodded, once. Kalara descended the steps toward Elias, not running, but fast. He looked up, still on one knee. "You're bleeding," she said, voice tight. "You should see the other guy," he rasped. "You nearly died." "You told me to survive," he said, "so I did." And when she knelt beside him and touched his face, gently, intimately, her thumb brushing blood from his temple, it was not for ceremony. It was real. That night, back in her chambers, Elias stood near the fire again, shirtless, bruised, ribs bandaged. Kalara stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed. "You impressed them." "I impressed you," he said. She said nothing for a moment, then walked toward him, slowly. Not a queen, not a warrior, just her. She reached for his hand, traced the edge of the still-healing wound from the blood binding. "You make it harder to stay distant," she said softly. "Good," he whispered. Their faces were close now, eyes locked. No politics, no empire, just two hearts caught in a collision they hadn't planned. "Tell me," she said, "what do you feel right now?" He leaned in. "Terrified," he said, "and also like I finally found the one thing in this galaxy worth bleeding for." Kalara closed the final distance. This time they did kiss, and it was not diplomatic. It was dangerous, warm, earned, a kiss that promised loyalty, lust, and something far more frightening, the beginning of love. It started with a whisper through the wall, a whisper that didn't belong to either of them. Elias turned sharply. The chamber was empty. Kalara was still in the steam baths 2 levels below, preparing for the public address to the border systems. He was supposed to be resting, healing, maybe even admiring his new status as bonded consort to the most powerful woman in Threxian space. Instead, he was barefoot, shirtless, and half-drunk on bloodroot nectar, standing in the corner of Kalara's private study, staring at a wall that had just spoken. "It watches you," the whisper said. "It watches her. Do not trust the blood-soaked light." Elias stared, then did what any over-caffeinated Terran diplomat would do when haunted by poetry. He touched the wall. The surface responded, warm, pulsing. A glyph flared, and a seam opened. He didn't think. He stepped through. Beyond the wall, a narrow corridor twisted like a serpent, lit by soft orange veins that pulsed faintly beneath black stone. Not a hallway. A vein, carved into the flesh of the ship itself, as if the Oath-Piercer had organs no one was supposed to see. As he walked, voices echoed, faint, intermittent, whispers of war, names, commands, Kalara's voice, the Emperor's, plans of planetary subjugation, rebellions, secrets no bonded consort was ever meant to hear. He stopped at a widened alcove. Inside was a sphere, floating midair, a memory orb. It swirled with gold and shadow, no labels, no key. But it called to him. When he touched it, the world around him bled away. A memory, not his. Kalara, younger, not a princess, a fugitive, running through the burning forests of Virex Prime, her robes torn, her face streaked with soot. A soldier beside her, older, wounded, calling her Kay. She screamed at him not to stop. And then, flashes of betrayal. The Emperor turning away as her brother was dragged into exile. His final words, "You will wear the crown, but your chains will be finer." The memory dissolved. Elias stumbled back, breath ragged. He didn't know how long he stood there, but when he turned, Kalara was there, watching him, silent. "I found the passage," Elias said. It was a poor excuse for an apology. Kalara stepped into the light, her robes still damp, hair twisted up, and her eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. "You weren't meant to," she said. I heard it speak. It always speaks. The ship remembers everything. It's built from starbone and soulstone. The walls listen. "You were exiled," he said quietly. "Your brother, he died," she said, "and I inherited a throne soaked in his blood." Silence. Elias took a step forward. "You never told me." "Would you have listened?" she asked. "If I had told you I was not the Empire's heir by honor, but by treachery? That the woman you were sent to marry once swore to burn this ship from the inside out?" He didn't flinch. "I would have understood." "You shouldn't." Another step. "Kylara," he said, her name a promise now. "You wear chains, I see that. But I'm not here to polish them. I'm here to break them with you." She looked at him then, truly looked, like he wasn't a diplomat, not a political tool, not a knife wrapped in a human smile, but a man, one who had nearly died for her, kissed her, bled for her, and now stood in her darkest corridor, not demanding answers, but offering allegiance. "You make it hard to hate you," she said softly. "Good," he whispered, "because I'm only just starting to love you." She stepped into him, no ceremony this time, no tension, just warmth. Her arms wrapped around him like she'd done it 1,000 times in another life. And when she kissed him again, slower, deeper, he kissed her like it would end wars. It wouldn't. But for the first time, they believed it might. Later, in the dark, Kailara lay with her head against his shoulder. "The rebellion is real," she said. Elias didn't speak, just waited. "My father suspects. That's why he tests me. You, United States. He fears I will make a new empire, not inherit his." "Will you?" Kailara turned her face into his chest. "I don't know yet," she said, "but if I do, it won't be alone." It began with a coin, not currency, not even metal, a Threxian flare sigil, flat, round, and semi-organic. It pulsed faintly when Elias touched it, as if it recognized his blood. He found it slipped beneath his pillow the morning after their kiss. Kailara recognized it immediately. "That shouldn't be here," she whispered, voice low, as if the walls had ears. They probably did. Elias held it up. "Friend or foe?" "Depends who's watching." The sigil blinked, once red, twice white, once more in violet. Then it shattered in his palm. Smoke swirled, and a message appeared, a projection of a hooded figure with a whisper-rough voice. "Heir of blood, bonded of flame, the fire you feared has found you. Come to Tesselis, come alone." The message vanished. Kailara said nothing for a long time. Then she turned away, her braid swaying like a judgment. "Tesselis is forbidden," she finally said. "An old moon, a dead moon, once a prison. Now, something else." "You know who they are?" "Yes." "Then let's go." She spun on him. "It's a trap. And yet you're afraid it isn't." That stopped her. He stepped closer. "If this is the rebellion your brother died whispering about, if this is the fire you were meant to light, then let me help you strike the match." Her eyes searched his. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't bluffing. He was with her. And she realized then, he wasn't the blade the Empire feared. He was the spark. They left in silence. No escort, no fanfare, just a cloaked vessel that Kailara herself unlocked from the lower hangars. A ghost ship, encoded for stealth, once used by royal assassins and long thought destroyed. They flew without lights, without names, through the shifting shadows of the Threxian expanse, where the stars bent slightly wrong and comets whispered to each other in code. Tesselis loomed like a skull at the edge of the known system, scarred, cracked. Partially hollowed by ancient war drills, the ruins of old Threxian prisons jutted from the crust like broken teeth. No life signs until they landed. Then the shadows moved. The rebels didn't wear banners, they wore scars, and not all of them were Threxian. Humans, greys, synths, even a few hybrid creatures that looked like they'd been modified in black labs, long forgotten by either empire. But they all bowed when Kailara entered the chamber. Not out of fear, out of hope. One stepped forward, a woman, older, tall, with eyes of molten silver and a spine reinforced by visible bone plating. Her voice was rough silk. "Kailara Virex, breaker of chains, daughter of the silence." Kailara didn't flinch. "You call me names I haven't earned." "You brought him," the woman said, nodding to Elias. "So maybe you've begun." Elias stepped forward. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "I'm what your union could become, or what it could destroy." They were led to an underground hall, carved into old prison stone. It smelled of dust, oil, and revolution. Maps of systems flickered across walls, red sectors, marked fleets, black ships on the move, data that shouldn't exist. "They've been preparing," Kailara said under her breath. "This is more than sabotage. This is military." They wait for the signal, the woman said. The reveal. When the Emperor moves to conquer the border worlds during the Festival of Flame, we strike, but we cannot win with ships alone. Elias narrowed his eyes. You need her. We need a symbol. Kylara stepped back. You think I can unify this? We think, the woman said, eyes turning toward Elias, that love built in blood can burn hotter than loyalty. Elias felt it then, the pivot, the choice. He wasn't just bonded, he was the bridge. And Kylara, she wasn't just air. She was the storm they had all been praying for. They spent that night in a chamber beneath the rebel stronghold, alone, away from the maps, the voices, the strategies. Kylara paced. You should leave, she said. This goes beyond diplomacy. Beyond us. The moment you align with me, you cease to be Earth's envoy. You become mine. Elias rose from the bed, walked to her, and cupped her jaw gently. I was yours before this moon, before the trial, before the kiss that kept me awake for 3 hours, wondering if my ribs were broken or if I was falling in love with a living legend. Her breath hitched. He smiled. Still not sure, by the way. She didn't smile back. Not fully. But she kissed him anyway. This kiss was different, not feverish, not accidental. It was a claim. Hands in hair, lips hungry, words forgotten. The kind of kiss that forgets the world is watching, because it isn't. Because in that moment, they were the world. Afterward, tangled in sheets of woven stardust, she whispered into the dark. If we do this, I won't be safe. I'm not here to make you safe, Elias murmured. I'm here to make you free. She closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to remember. The Oath-Piercer had never looked more radiant, or more dangerous. Banners of burning silk stretched from its highest towers. Skyships bloomed in perfect formations across the upper atmosphere, their engine trails weaving glowing symbols in the twilight. In the capital below, citizens danced barefoot through fire-slicked plazas. Music, all brass and rhythm, echoed through the city's bones. This was the Festival of Flame, a time of light, a time of lies. And at the center of it all stood Kylara Virex, dressed in ceremonial crimson, shot through with silver flame veins. A crown of charred crystal floated just above her brow, held aloft by tech no outsider understood. She looked divine. She felt cornered. Beside her, Elias wore formal robes again, dark blue with gold flares, a diplomatic mask etched into his collar, and a ceremonial dagger at his hip. Everyone called it a token. It was a warning. They stood atop the royal balcony as the first cascade of fire-ribbon comets launched into the dusk, trailing spirals of red and blue. The crowd below roared. Kylara didn't move. Elias leaned toward her, barely whispering, They think this is a celebration. It is. They don't see the noose tightening. They're not meant to. A long pause. You could run, he said, tonight with me. There are rebel ships waiting just beyond the arc moons. Kylara turned her head slightly, just enough for her words to slide past her teeth. And leave them in his hands? Elias said nothing, because there was nothing to say. That night, during the ceremonial feast, Kylara stood to deliver the Virex address, a speech spoken once every generation. Traditionally, it honored the continuity of empire. Tonight, it would do something else. The hall was overflowing. Generals, politicians, royal scientists, foreign envoys, and tucked behind gold-latticed shadows, spies. Elias sat near the edge of the dais, his hands still, his eyes scanning. He recognized one face, tall Marek, scarred, seated beside the Emperor, alive, watching him. Kylara stepped forward. The hall hushed. She spoke, not from a scroll, but from memory. Her voice was fire and honey, deliberate, slow, every syllable landing like a drumbeat. You all know me, daughter of flame, blood of Virex, heir to a war that never ends, and yet I stand here not to inherit it, but to end it. A stir in the crowd. The Emperor didn't move. His jaw tensed slightly. Kalara pressed on. Our power was meant to protect, not enslave. But what have we become? A system of surveillance, of silence, of conquest, wrapped in ritual. Now the stir became a tremor. Some stood. Others sat stone still. Kalara raised her chin. Tonight I name a new path, one that leads through flame and rises, reborn. Elias could feel it, in the walls, in the floor. The tension was chemical, the moment right before a match is struck. Then, a flash, a hiss. The lights cut out, and from above an explosion. Smoke flooded the hall. Screams. Confusion. Elias stood in a blink. Kalara! But Kalara was already gone. She'd vanished into the smoke with the grace of a ghost. The Emperor's voice boomed from the center. Treason! Treason! Lock the ship! Lock the dam! Another explosion, this one nearer. The walls cracked with heat. Suddenly, Kalara's voice rang through every speaker, every comm band, every neural implant. I am no longer air. I am storm. Let it be known. The flame-born empire dies tonight. Chaos erupted. Rebel agents inside the ship triggered a coordinated breach. Lockdowns were reversed. Attendants pulled weapons from serving trays. Holograms flickered and fell to reveal escape routes carved through the deck plating. And in the middle of it all, Elias Rook ran through smoke and plasma fire, slicing through guards with his ceremonial dagger, now soaked in something far more sincere. He reached the launch bay. Kalara was already waiting, a blast rifle slung over one shoulder and a cloak of reactive fiber blooming behind her. I thought you said we weren't leaving, he shouted. She smirked. We're not. You are. No. This was never your war, Elias. Maybe not, but it's my love. That stopped her. Her eyes flashed, not with anger, with fear. If you stay, there's no going back. He stepped closer, the launch bay howling around them. Then forward's the only direction. And just like that, they kissed again. With fire blooming behind them, with sirens screaming, with the world unraveling. And when they pulled apart, breathless and bloody and burning, she handed him a blade. Then fight, she said, beside me. The stars above Tessalus were no longer still. From the decks of the stolen royal warship, now renamed Ashwing, Kalara Virex stood before hundreds. Not just Threxian soldiers in broken armor, not just outcasts and synth-born survivors, but all species, united not by peace, but by fire. Behind her, the new sigil gleamed across every view screen, a phoenix made of fractured star bones, its wings burning through the darkness. Her voice rang through the decks like a blade tempered in heartbreak. We are no longer royal, no longer chained to names carved by tyrants. We are not Virex. We are the flame-born remnant, and we will not kneel again. Elias watched from the side. He'd seen her speak before, but never like this. She wasn't Kalara the warrior or Kalara the heir. She was Kalara the spark, the moment before revolution breathes. And then she turned to him. Commander, she said. He blinked. Me? You said forward's the only direction, she said, stepping closer. Then lead one. She handed him a data pad, a rebel assault plan. His name, listed as lead strategist of Strike Wing Ember 3. Welcome to the war, she said, and pressed her forehead to his just for a breath. Don't get famous without me. 12 hours later, over the atmosphere of Trinexus 5, the ship jolted. Plasma rounds slammed into their shields like hail made of fury. Elias braced himself against the side of the pilot pod as Ember 3 dove under the orbital defenses. He wasn't trained for this. He was made for this. Cut the grav feed, he barked. Commander, that'll slam us into the deck. Exactly. And then we shoot our way up. The pilot obeyed. The ship dropped, and they crash-landed through the side of the relay station with a sound like gods punching through steel. The rebel squad surged behind him. They weren't clean. They weren't perfect. They were desperate. They moved fast. Disable the comms. Steal the encryption keys. Plant the virus. Elias fought side by side with them, blade to bone, elbow to face, until his hands were slick and the mission was complete. First strike. Victory. But something gnawed at the edges of his mind. A whisper he couldn't name, as if something unseen had watched them the whole time. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Virex throne fortress, the Emperor stood in the dark. The chamber was old, pre-imperial, carved with symbols that pulsed in languages no living being had spoken in 1,000 years. Machines lined the walls, arcane, half-organic, running on energy harvested from extinction events. And at the center was a sarcophagus. It breathed. "You always knew she would betray me," Virex whispered. He reached out, touched the surface. "She was never strong enough. But you were." A voice, impossibly familiar, echoed from inside the stone. "She does not understand the fire, but I do. Father, let me burn again." The Emperor smiled and activated the sequence. Back on the Ashwing, Kalara stood in her war chamber, studying maps of potential loyalist ambushes. Elias walked in, bruised and bleeding, holding the cracked hilt of a broken plasma dagger. "You should see the other relay station," he grinned. She raised an eyebrow. "That's the third one this week. Turns out I'm pretty good at high-speed revolution." She took his face in her hands and kissed his forehead. "You're becoming dangerous." He kissed her lips, only for the right reasons. They didn't have long. He could feel it in her bones when she touched him. The storm was coming. Later that night she received a coded message. Private, untraceable. She opened it. What she saw nearly stopped her heart. A live feed from inside the throne fortress, and standing in the middle of it, alive, smiling, scarred, her brother, the one she thought dead, the one she'd buried with her own hands. "Kay?" His voice was soft, haunting. "Father has made me whole again. He says we're meant to rule, together." Kalara dropped the screen, stumbled back. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Elias ran to her. "What is it?" She looked at him, eyes wide with a horror no battle could ever cause. "He brought him back," she said. "My brother, my twin. The one who died." "He's not dead anymore," she said, then softer. "He's worse." The silence after the message was deafening. Kalara stood frozen, her fingertips still glowing from the transmission glyph. The holoscreen had vanished, but the image lingered. Her brother Rin, alive, or something that wore his face. Elias stepped toward her, gently, as if afraid the air between them might shatter. "Tell me who he was," he said softly. Kalara's voice came slowly, like someone resurrecting a name from ash. "Rin was the better half of me, wiser, kinder. He was supposed to inherit the throne. I was the shield. He was the soul." "What happened to him?" "The Emperor, our father, called it an accident, a shuttle sabotage. Said rebels did it, but I knew." She swallowed. "I found pieces of the wreckage. It wasn't rebel work. It was imperial." Elias's jaw tensed. "He killed his own son." "And now he's brought him back," she said, "but I don't know what's inside that body." Elias didn't ask what she meant. He could see it in her eyes. She feared this wasn't resurrection. She feared it was reconstruction. Rebel High Council, Ashwing Warship, 5 hours later. The war room was split. Half demanded immediate retaliation. The other half warned caution. No one knew what technology the Emperor had used, but the implications were clear. If he could bring back Rin, who else could he resurrect? Elias stood beside Kalara as she addressed the room. "If my brother is truly back," she said, "then he must be retrieved, not destroyed. I need to know what was taken from him, what remains." A gray-skinned synth commander scoffed. "And if there's nothing left to save?" Kalara turned slowly. "Then I will burn the body myself." The room fell silent. Even Elias didn't speak, because they all heard the grief tucked behind her steel. Imperial Fortress, Moon of Vyrix Delta, codename Crucible Labyrinth. Rin Vyrex stood in the inner sanctum. He didn't breathe, not in the human sense. He didn't sleep. He simply watched. Across from him, the Emperor observed a holomap of the rebel fleet. Data poured in from spies and long-buried drones. But Virex wasn't looking at his daughter's positions. He was watching Rin. A technician approached. His vitals remained stable. Mind integrity is at 87%. Emotional suppression. Still fluctuating. "Increase the echo drones," the Emperor said. "Let him see more of her. Let him remember. That will harden the line." The technician hesitated. "Sir, if we push him too far—" The Emperor turned. "He is not my son. He is my sword." Rin didn't move, but his eyes flickered. They went in with only three, Kalara, Elias, and a stealth operative named Miss, who'd once stolen a battleship disguised as a monk. The corridors of the Crucible were unlike anything Kalara had ever seen. The walls weren't just metal. They pulsed with organic circuits, glowing faintly like veins. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Architecture folding in on itself, staircases that bent sideways, echoes that didn't match their movements. "This place was built with off-world tech," Elias whispered. "Ancient. Pre-human." Kailara nodded. "It's not Imperial. It's something older. Something wrong." Then they found the chamber, and there he stood. Rin perfectly still, surrounded by liquid data glyphs, spinning around his body. He looked exactly as she remembered him. Same solemn eyes, same tall frame, even the burn mark on his left jaw from sparring when they were teens. But his aura was hollow. He looked at her and smiled. "Sister," her breath caught. "Rin? You came. Father said you wouldn't." "I buried you," she whispered. "I held your broken hand. I felt your heart stop. That version of me died. This one remembers you." He stepped down from the glyphs. Elias tensed. Rin looked at him. This is the Terran, the bond slave, the emotional trigger. Kalara stepped forward, trying not to let her knees betray her. "What did he do to you?" she asked. "He gave me purpose." "No," she said. "He rewrote you." Rin's voice stayed calm, almost sad. "You're wrong. I chose this." And then he attacked, not with fists, with memories. Suddenly, Kalara's mind was not her own. Images of childhood, of training, of running through the golden halls of Virex with Rin by her side. He was projecting into her, using tech older than Threxian science, tearing her memories apart and rebuilding them into propaganda. Elias stepped between them, fired. The plasma bolt hit Rin in the shoulder. He staggered, not from pain, from recognition. He looked at Elias. "You love her." "I do." "Then you'll die for her." He moved faster than anything Elias had fought. Elias barely dodged the first strike, parried the second. The third caught him in the side, cut through cloth and skin. "Rin!" Kalara screamed. "He's gone!" Elias shouted. "This isn't your brother. It's a weapon with his face." Rin turned, blade drawn, but Kalara struck first. Twin plasma daggers, one to disarm, one to stab. She buried it into his abdomen. Rin gasped. Not from pain, but from memory. I'm sorry," she whispered. He fell, not dead, but deactivated. The tech in his veins flickered, faded. The memories they'd used to shape him, now bleeding. Kalara collapsed beside him, breathing hard, her blade shaking. Elias dropped beside her, pulling her close. "I had to know," she sobbed. "I had to see if anything was left." Elias held her. "There was," he whispered. "That's why he hesitated." They left Crucible in flames. The rebellion had gained something darker than intel. They'd learned how far the Emperor would go, and how far Kalara would go to stop him, even if it meant burning what little remained of her heart. The shipyard rang with final preparations. Forges hissed, engines thrummed, newborn warships roared to life like awakened dragons. On the central command deck of the Ashwing, Kalara stood cloaked in black and red, the new colors of the remnant, stitched with threads of fallen banners from every conquered world. The old empire was dying, but it was not going quietly. Kalara turned to her advisors. Her voice was steel, clean and sharp. In 3 days we launch full assault on the Virex core. We will not ask permission. We will not negotiate. We burn down the throne, and we rebuild the stars in its ashes. Elias stood beside her, now wearing battle-worn armor etched with Threxian sigils, one of which bore her name. He no longer looked like a consort. He looked like a general, a symbol, and someone the Emperor could no longer afford to leave alive. That night, Elias's quarters. The lights were dim, the air smelled faintly of engine fuel and warmth. Elias lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Kalara entered quietly, her silhouette lit only by the glow of the outer stars. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Didn't think you'd be sleeping either." She smirked, dropped her gloves, sat on the edge of his bunk. "There's something I want to ask," she said. "Please don't propose." She laughed, just once. "Why haven't you asked to go home?" Elias met her gaze. "Because home isn't a place anymore," he said. "It's who I bleed beside." Kalara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she leaned down and kissed him. Soft at first, then not. It was a kiss that didn't promise forever. It promised tomorrow. Meanwhile, Imperial Throne Fortress, core of Virex. The Emperor stood in a sphere of data. Dozens of ships hovered in projection around him, but the true weapon was beneath, the Echo Array. Using memory graphs from captured rebel leaders, those who had once loved Kalara, once trusted Elias, the Emperor had forged a fleet of soldiers who could predict their moves before they made them. The dead now fought for the throne, and at the head of this psychic armada, Rin, awake, reprogrammed, and silent. He no longer looked human, not truly. His eyes burned with starfire, his veins pulsed with fractal logic. And when the Emperor asked if he remembered love, Rin simply said, "It was inefficient." Day of war. Final transmission from the Ashwing. Message, no more crowns. Sender, Kalara Virex. Recipients, all civilian frequencies. This is not a rebellion. This is a release from systems that told us loyalty was obedience, that told us royalty meant worth, that taught us silence was noble. I am not your princess. I am not your heir. I am your equal. And this is the last war fought for a throne. No more empires, no more crowns, just fire and freedom. The battle begins. They came through the Black Gate at dawn. The Ashwing fleet burned forward, 100 stolen cruisers, patched fighters, war frigates powered by guilt and hope. Kalara led the charge in the Emberheart, a warbird refitted from an old execution-class dreadnought. Elias commanded the vanguard, piloting directly into the first wave of psychic drones. They swarmed like insects. Each one murmured a name from his past. They knew him, and they used his own memories as bait. One took the form of his mother, another his dead comrade from Earth's outer alliances. "Elias," it whispered, "come home." He fired without hesitation. There was no home, only her. The throne falls. Kalara boarded the citadel herself. She cut through guards, drones, loyalists, every hallway drenched in the echo of her name. She reached the final chamber. And there he was, the Emperor, her father, alone, waiting, not with a weapon, with a glass of blood wine. "I always knew you'd return," he said. "I just didn't think you'd bring love with you." Kalara didn't move. He raised the glass. "Treason tastes like tradition, doesn't it?" She stepped forward. "No," she said. "It tastes like truth." And she shot him in the heart, point blank. But it's not over. Rin entered the chamber as the Emperor fell, eyes burning, sword drawn. Elias arrived seconds later, panting, bleeding. Rin turned to Kalara. "You destroyed everything." Kalara lowered her weapon. "I'm sorry." Rin raised his blade. "So am I." Then Elias lunged. He didn't wait, didn't hesitate. He tackled Rin into the Emperor's throne. They crashed through the control altar. Elias shouted, "For her!" and stabbed his own memory chip into Rin's neural port. The overload was immediate. Rin screamed. As Elias's memories flooded him, all of them, the first time he saw Kalara, the blood trial, the kiss before war. Love dash was the last thing Rin ever saw. Then silence. The Empire was gone, not just the banners, the ideas. The people chose their own names now, planets elected leaders. The stars were quiet, and on the quietest of them all, Tessalus, the wedding took place. Small, private, just rebel friends, old crew, and the only vow Kalara whispered as she looked into Elias's eyes. "No crowns, just you." He kissed her, and the galaxy, for the first time in 1,000 years, did not burn. It breathed. The war ended quietly, the way rain ends a long drought, slowly and all at once. The last crown was melted, the last sword laid down, the last name of the old empire whispered and forgotten, and Kalara and Elias simply stepped away. They chose no titles, not ruler, not queen, not guardian or flame-bearer. They were done with thrones and symbolism. The galaxy had taken enough from them, enough blood, enough years, enough sleep. It did not get to take the future, too. So they vanished, just two names, slipping into myth while still alive. They built their home far from the war-torn systems, on a small moon where the stars felt closer and the air hummed with stillness. The forests were thick with bioluminescent trees. The nights glowed, not with fire, but with peace. The house was simple, polished stone, hand-built walls, real windows that opened to real wind. Elias insisted on the windows. Kalara insisted on the rooftop garden. They planted wildflowers from Threxian valleys and herbs from earth. Some took root, others didn't. But the point wasn't perfection. It was growing something that didn't need to be defended. Mornings were slow. Kalara would rise early and brew tea laced with skyroot and citrus balm, her hair loose and wild. Elias, always late, would stumble out in worn tunics and kiss her cheek like he was still surprised she hadn't left him. They didn't talk about the war. They didn't have to. Their silence was not avoidance. It was understanding. At night they'd lie on the roof under blankets and name the stars, not by their military designations, but by how they felt. "That one," Elias would say, pointing, "feels like that time you stabbed me in the leg for being too charming." Kalara would smirk. "I barely nicked you." "You severed a tendon. It healed." He'd turn, smile crooked. "You always do." Once Kalara asked him if he missed being someone important. Elias blinked, then rolled over, pulled her against his chest, and whispered, "You're my entire galaxy. I don't need to orbit anyone else." Their bodies aged, slowly but surely. His hair grayed at the temples. Her fingers grew calloused from gardening, not from weapons. They grew softer, gentler, unafraid. And one night, long after the last report of galactic unrest had flickered and gone, Elias took her hand under the starlight and asked, "Would you marry me again? No crown, no speeches, just a promise?" Kalara laughed, not the regal laugh of a war-born heir, just a woman in love. She nodded and whispered, "Every day, until the stars go out." They didn't need an audience, just the wind, the flowers, and the echo of a galaxy that once tried to claim them. But in the end, they chose each other, and the universe never got the last word.